Hey, everybody out there. We have with us once again Mark Collinsworth of Very Global Wealth Management, here to talk about this tremendous fine that's been leveled against Donald Trump in the so-called fraud case in New York to the tune of 355 million. And then on top of that, there's other judgments against him that could bring it up to almost $500 million. Now, Mark, a lot of observers say this is absurd. It is tremendously excessive. What do you think?
Well, thank you, Larry. And I totally agree with that. Under New York law, and I think AP News actually did the study on this. They went through and looked at every case throughout all of New York history, case history, and there never has been an instance to where if a person didn't have received damages, like fraud was committed or something where the person actually lost money, that a person was fined and more to the point was actually barred from doing business in the state. So this is the first time in New York case law history that this has ever been done to anybody.
And actually, was it really fraud? Because everybody involved in real estate and businesses, they give one estimate of their value. Sometimes it's inflated. The banks will bring it down. I mean, it's really a subjective matter of opinion. So it's usually no big deal. It's not brought into question, and it certainly isn't considered criminal in all other cases, correct? Except this one.
Correct. This is the first time. And this is the funny thing. uh, and this is what a lot of people thought the case was totally destroyed. The bank that Donald Trump actually got the loan from, I think, was Deutsche Bank. He actually went for like I think he asked them for like a $200 million loan and used $200 million of what he valued as his property value. Deutsche Bank went in there and did their own analysis, said we think it's actually worth $150 million and gave him a loan $150 million. He then went through and actually paid back the entire loan, never missed a payment. Deutsche Bank lost no money on it. And even the Deutsche Bank actually even told the judge in the courtroom, this is very standard practice for banks to look at the asset values and to actually lower them to what they think, because it's an opinion. Everyone has an opinion on what the future value will be. And
Yeah.
everyone thought the case would fall apart at that point, but the judge totally ignored that. So the question is, who got damaged here? Who lost money? It seemed like when you find a person, someone should be made whole again. Well, no one lost any money. So the the government now, or the state New York, is going to take the money. And more to the point, they actually even said today that if Donald Trump does not pay the fine within so many days, the state of New York is actually going to seize all of his personal property in the state of New York.
Could this actually bankrupt Trump?
Yeah, if you don't have liquid assets, he may actually have the assets. They just may not be liquid enough. And if they're not liquid enough, you can't go out and sell you can't sell real estate in 24 hours. So yeah, it could bankrupt them.
I mean, it's obviously the judge, Engoron, and Letitia James, the attorney general. I mean, they were on a mission to get Trump, and they said so outright a number of times. So, this certainly wasn't equal justice. But beyond that, yeah, you brought up an interesting point in a previous conversation with me that this has set a precedent now because it's the first time they've used a consumer law for
Yep.
this. Couldn't get it any other way. I mean, it was pieced together, manufactured. But this has set a precedent now. So, do other businesses need to fare?
Absolutely, because what what Donald Trump did is basically normal business. Everyone's always going to put a higher value on their asset than what a bank is going to think it is. And this now has banks, every company now in New York that's done this is going to be facing the same problem. And I think, New York already is faced with high crime rates, high inflation rate at first state, and taxes. A lot of businesses just don't want to be in New York. And give you a case in point, if you guys watch, Shark Tank, Mr. Wonderful, I watched him in an interview yesterday on CNBC, and he said he will never do another business deal in New York ever again because of the fear that he has on what the government could actually rule against him and go against precedents of law.
And do you think other companies are likely to follow suit?
Absolutely. I see no reason. Why would you want to roll the dice and go and do business in a state that could actually seize your property for a standard business practice.
Well,
So yeah.
the governor Letitia, the governor Hochul, has already come out and said, well, other businesses don't need to fear just Donald Trump because his actions are so egregious, which is a ridiculous statement. But I mean, are they going to be reassured by Governor Hochul's reassurance to them that they have nothing to fear?
Oh no, absolutely not. That's you have a judge that has now set a new precedent. More to the point is this is clearly political. Donald Trump did nothing wrong. Out of the 170 cases I think that have been similar to this in the last 50 years in New York, this is the first time this happened. This was completely political. This sends another message to people. If you go against the establishment and you try to actually use, your First Amendment rights to say things that say what you believe, the government can find a way now, has now got a weapon to go against businesses in the state of New York.
So actually, the way this could all unfold is that the businesses who are on the right side of the political tracks will be left alone. But if you criticize somebody in office or somebody with influence and they don't like it, they've got this law ready and waiting to nail you.
Correct. And that's the thing also. This didn't go in front of a jury. This was completely on this complete fine and penalty was based solely on the judge. There was no jury to rule on this. So this was the opinion of a judge that actually did this. But more to the point, in 2016, when Donald Trump was elected and Trump's attorneys tried to get the judge to be excused from this case, the judge made it very clear in 2016 he was going to do everything he could in New York to damage Donald Trump. So, I mean, you already had a judge that went in with a bias. I don't see how this cannot get overturned in appeal. I'm surprised that the judge did this to begin with because clearly this has to be overturned.
Well, New York appellate courts, I don't know how favorable they will be to Donald Trump. So, who knows whether it should be overturned on appeal. A lot of legal experts say that, the objective ones, but whether it will be or not is still open to question.
Correct. And this is just a very scary thing because this is the first time this has ever been done in the state of New York. It sets a whole brand new of fears for people in New York. Again, nobody wants to do business in New York to begin with.
Well, Mark, New York has been, the financial center of the United States. Now, how much of a threat is that to topple that status that New York is the engine driving the economy and finances throughout the United States?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. A lot of businesses in New York have actually already left the state to go to other states that are more tax friendly, such as Texas and Florida. Don't forget, at one time, the NRA, the National Rifle Association, was actually headquartered in New York. And because of all the political pressure on it, it actually left the state of New York.
Now, also another factor, Mark, the office occupancy rate in New York is what, like less than 50% now? So that endangers all these skyscrapers, the office spaces in there because nobody's in them. So how are these buildings going to remain solvent?
That is a whole brand new issue. You are correct. Ever since COVID, a lot of your businesses have discovered that you can get the exact same amount of work done half the price because people can work from home. That's why your office space has the occupancy rate in New York has dropped so much. So yes, that's another problem here is New York, which is already faced with a problem of rental space not being rented out, is going to face a new problem that businesses in the future will not come to the state.
So could this actually be the beginning of the decline of New York as a financial center, as removing the status that it's had all these years? So New York will be a shell of what it once was business wide. I mean, is it that serious a situation?
It's very, very serious. Don't forget, several years ago, Amazon was thinking about putting a massive business center there in New York. And because, I think the girl, the AOC, whatever the
Yeah.
Alexandria Cortez, she made such a big ruckus that Amazon doesn't pay income taxes, which Amazon does pay income taxes. If they weren't paying income taxes, the IRS would go after them. And Amazon got so fed up with the the political business atmosphere that was present there in New York, it pulled the deal and refused to do any business there with the new establishment and went to another state that was more tax friendly.
Now, so combine all the assaults on New York, with the rising crime rate, the taxes, the sanitary mess in the streets, and now the Trump judgment, the lack of occupancy in office buildings. So it's all coming together now, and the outcome is a seriously negative outcome from New York.
Oh yeah, all this did was add fuel to the fire. It was already in a bad situation to begin with. This now has given businesses a whole brand new reason not to do business in the state of New York.
And a lot of them, as you say, they're moving either south or west, are they not?
Yeah, Florida's actually been, I think, Florida has been the biggest state to benefit from um, businesses actually leaving New York and leaving California as well.
Wow. Well, Mark, yeah, another crazy thing that's happening now politically in the United States, and who knows what's ahead. Mark Collinsworth, Very Global Financial Wealth Management. Thanks once again for your perspective.
Thank you very much, Larry.